Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel for another Ethereum update. So, I want to talk about how ETH is performing against the US dollar and the BTC pair, and also, since the last video we made on my channel 13 days ago, I was talking about my $1,000 Ethereum target. Bear in mind, when I did make this video, ETH was sitting at $1,780, and I was saying we're going to drop 44% down to $1,000. That is exactly what we did. So let's jump right into the video. As you can see, the trade that we made out in the previous video has panned out perfectly. So as we've hit my next price target, as we are consolidating and sitting within this $1,000 price range, it is now time that we delete this target as it's been hit on the head. We zoom out, look at the macro chart, and potentially draw to where we are likely to head down to in the next range. Now, if we switch over to a logarithmic growth curve scale, the first thing that I would like to say, which is what I highlighted back here when we were so easily able to call $1,000, the reason we were able to do this is because we said, look back at how Ethereum and other altcoins, the total crypto market cap, Bitcoin, the total altcoin market cap, you pick your poison, all of them, all of the charts, none of them held the 786 Fibonacci in the bear market. Now, if you bought and you started DCAing after these altcoins capitulate below the 786, then you did a lot better than the people who decided to DCA all the way down. Now, at this moment in time, I would like to emphasize, while we are capitulating below the 786 just like I predicted, and I do think DCAing below the 786 range is a lot better than just blindly DCAing the whole way down, I am not ready to DCA Ethereum yet, and I'll talk about why. As you can see, last cycle we capitulated below the 786, we took one quick capitulation down, consolidated, and then we had the final capitulation. Now, am I saying that this is going to play out exactly the same? Am I saying that we're going to do everything to the teeth like we did before? Absolutely not. This market cycle is very, very different than what we've previously seen, and as such we should look at this in a different manner. However, I do think once we have our next macro capitulation below this 786, that is when I start to plan on picking up altcoins. Now, if you're new to my channel, first of all, warm welcome. But if you're a veteran to my channel, you will know that I've been sitting on the sideline for these altcoins for absolutely ages now, and I'm feeling more bullish this weekend than I have felt on altcoins and cryptos in the past couple of months. I've been religiously saying on my channel I am not buying the dip. I've been very, very adamant about that, and thank God I have, because all of these altcoins, all of our predictions, which originally people were telling me, your predictions are too bearish, Ethereum's never going to go down to this level. People commented on my KDA videos, my Solana videos, when I said Sol was going to $25, when I said ETH was going to $100. People, and rightfully so, because these are big moves that I'm predicting. People were saying, this is not going to happen, and price target after price target after price target, all of our price targets are getting massively filled. And I want to talk about my next macro price target for Ethereum, which once again is probably going to rustle a few feathers because this is another brutal price target that we are predicting. But the next macro level down will be a 54% drop down to $478. Now, the Ethereum market cap right now is super high, and in my opinion, I do really believe that Ethereum is overvalued for what it is. I do not believe the market cap of Ethereum constitutes, 125 billion. I do think that's a little bit ridiculous and a bit too much. I also don't think the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation should be the way that it is. I don't think one Ethereum is worth 5% of a Bitcoin, but nonetheless, that is my subjective opinion, and I don't like to bring my emotional thoughts and, my opinions on cryptocurrencies into the TA. So I want to mention that as a segue, and we're going to move back in the charts. When we're looking at the charts, I like to look at things very robotically. For example, in my opinion, Ethereum should be below, $500, but looking at the charts from a very robotic perspective and understanding that not everyone has the same opinion as me. A lot of people think Ethereum is currently undervalued, and I know that a lot of people will be buying Ethereum if it does come down to $500. putting all of these technicals together is why I think that Ethereum bottoming at $478 is going to be very, very likely. There's tons of whale orders down here at these $500 ranges. So in my opinion, I really do think Ethereum is going to have a last major capitulation below or between the areas of $500 all the way down to $478. Now, this is when I start to plan on laddering into Ethereum. Now, once again, if you are a veteran to my channel, you will know that I have been saying since Ethereum was, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that I have been sitting on the sidelines and I am not interested in DCAing. This is the first time, and I also made a Solana video and I had some price targets where I'd be looking to pick up Sol. This is the first time in months where I've been saying, you know, I'm starting to get more bullish, but I do still think there's going to be one last capitulation. So I do want you to take that with a grain of salt. I do think we're getting ready to have that last capitulation because once again, in bear markets, altcoins do not hold their 786 Fibonacci. They capitulate below the 786 and then they have one last macro flush out to the downside. And I think that's what we're getting ready for Ethereum. So I really don't want to look at the micro charts 4-hourly time frame too much. I would just once again like to highlight the trend is your friend, and since the most recent dead cat bounce up to $3,400, you've been coming into the 4-hourly EMAs, crashing lower high, crashing lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. I can go on lower, lower, lower. And we actually did have a pretty neat dead cat bounce, which didn't necessarily constitute oh no, it wasn't. Sorry, this was, I take that back. This was just my my cursor playing tricks on me. As you can still see, the market structure was completely unchanged the whole way through. Lower highs were basically all that we saw throughout this period in time. And even now, lower high, lower high, lower high. And I think we're getting ready to roll back to the downside very, very soon. We're coming up into these EMA ribbons. We are getting rejected on the 4-hourly time frame. And I think the only reason we're kind of lollygagging within this range is the fact that if we look at what Bitcoin's doing, Bitcoin is right down at its previous all-time high. So it's really not surprising to see Bitcoin lollygag for a couple of days when we're at arguably the most important area of support flip resistance in Bitcoin's, I'd say in Bitcoin's entire history. I'd say this 19,700 is the single most important price target that Bitcoin has ever had. And the reason why I put more weight and more importance on this 19,700 previous all-time price target than I put importance on the previous price targets from down here at the all-time high, and I put price targets down here from the previous all-time high, is because of the network effect. There's many more people in the Bitcoin network. There's a plethora of new wallets. There's more transactions going on the blockchain every day. So the network has got bigger in of itself. So in Bitcoin's entire history, the network effect is at its highest at this moment in time. No, the network effect was not at its highest at the previous all-time high. If you watch my video talking about the Bitcoin on-chain metrics this week, if you look at this one, Bitcoin on-chain metrics, TikTok next block, then you'll already know that Bitcoin's active addresses, Bitcoin's new wallets, there's more of these than at any point in time. The hash rate is making new all-time highs, meaning the network is more secure. So this is the most important level that I think Bitcoin could possibly establish itself at. And I do think we're getting ready for that last capitulation on Bitcoin, which should mean that this is going to bleed over to Ethereum. And this makes sense because when we look at how Ethereum is performing against Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been dropping and Ethereum has been following that drop. Now, only within the past month or so, Ethereum has actually started to move down, and we basically drew this out perfectly from the past couple of videos. This was what we were predicting, a massive move down. I was predicting a 29-30% drop in the last video, and we're down 16% against the Bitcoin pair, which is great. I believe this was in the same prediction video as when we were calling from ETH to move from 1,800 down to 1,000, and that's what we've done, but we're not quite there on the Ethereum pair, on the BTC pair yet. I still do think this is probably going to move down to between 4 to 3% of a Bitcoin, and you can really see the selling volume is massively moving up, meaning that over on Binance and a lot of other exchanges, people are liquidating their Ethereum against Bitcoin. So with that being said, I do think ETH has one last, potentially two last final capitulations to the downside, and within those capitulations, if we do make it down to these $500 ranges, $478, this is where I finally plan on picking up some Ethereum. Once again, I have to say this, I am not a fan of the Ethereum project. I do not believe that it's, even one of the best blockchains. I'm not even, that big of a fan of it. I think it's, a centralized pre-mined coin, which I'm really just not a fan of. But once again, I like to leave my emotions out of trading. For example, I always say this: don't love it, don't hate it, trade it. And what does that mean for myself? This means while I'm not a fan of the Ethereum project, the technicals and the social metrics of this are one of the most bullish out of any of the altcoins I look at. So, take it with a grain of salt. As I always say, I'm not a fan of Ethereum, but I am a fan of making money. And I do believe that Ethereum is going to go down to $500. I believe a lot of people are going to buy it up, and it's probably going to have a moonshot before it comes back down, and potentially either backtest the target, makes a lower low or a lower high. But, once again, I'm not trying to buy the exact bottom. No one's going to buy the exact bottom, but I am going to try and buy within a small range of which I believe would be the bottom for Ethereum, which in my opinion would be anywhere between, $600 and $400 is within this kind of range that I think Ethereum is going to find its macro bottom at. And because of that, I am going to set buy orders on Ethereum between the levels of $500 all the way down to $478. I might put some buy orders at $505 just to front run the market in case there is a lot of buyers at 500, because obviously, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Ethereum, but I do think it is a great project for the long term. I do not have to like the project from a fundamental perspective to acknowledge that the charts in the macro time frame are very, very bullish, and this does outperform Bitcoin in the macro time frame. So that being said, this is definitely something that I will be looking to pick up when I do think this has bottomed, and when I think this is going to bottom is around the $500 ratio. So with that being said, that is basically all I've got for you for Ethereum. Also, one last thing to finish things off on is, while ETH BTC higher time frames volume is massively stacking up and pushing the price down, and the squeeze bomb is massively pushing to the downside as well, indicative that we would be taking that last capitulation down in the macro term, the ETH USD pair is exactly the same. There is no divergence between the two pairs, and in fact I believe ETH USD, which is currently capitulating below the 786, is going to be a leading indicator of what we should expect to happen over on ETH BTC, meaning that my most conservative price target for Ethereum to bottom against Bitcoin should be round about the evaluation of 3.2% of a Bitcoin, representing a drop of 38% against Bitcoin. Now, bear in mind, most of my money is in Bitcoin. I do have some fiat on the side. So if I do look to pick up some Ethereum, I'd be looking to predominantly trade it against the BTC pair, meaning I would sell a small bucket of my Bitcoin holding position, and well, my Bitcoin trading position rather, and I would put that in Ethereum. I would wait for the next run up on Ethereum, and I would slowly take my profits back into Bitcoin, because I'm in Bitcoin for the long term. I'm in Ethereum to make a trade to accumulate more Bitcoin. This is how I look at altcoins. It doesn't matter whether it's Ethereum, the top 3 altcoins in the entire world, and it doesn't matter if it's the 100th most popular altcoin. I am in altcoins to make more Bitcoin, and once again, I'm not in ETH for the long term because I'm not the biggest fan of the project, but once again, I am a fan of making money, and looking at this chart from the most unemotional perspective as I possibly can, I do believe $500 is going to be in play, and I also think that is going to be a great place to DCA for the long term. Whether you're planning on buying as a quick swing trade back up to 1,000 and then selling, or whether you plan on buying Ethereum at $500 and holding it for 5-10 years down the line, whatever you plan on doing, I think $500 is going to be a much better place to start DCAing than at the levels we're at right now. I said the exact same thing at $1,800 in my last video, and as you can see, that one has also played out very, very nicely. So this is my next prediction, a 54% drop. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you are kind of wondering when I think we're going to start making this next major leg to the downside, it is going to be on Monday. Why do I think it's going to happen on Monday? I think Bitcoin is going to start losing a lot of support, and people are going to start panicking after we have a weekly close below the all-time high. And I think with that, coming into the Monday opening of the SPY, the stock market, I believe the trend is going to be your friend, and we are going to continue to see a big move to the downside for the stock market. I think the dollar is going to continue pushing up, which it has been for quite some period in time now. And with that, as you can imagine, the dollar is inversely correlated to the stock market. The stock market is highly correlated to Bitcoin at this moment in time. And as you can imagine, if the stock market starts pushing down and the dollar starts pushing up, you are going to see Bitcoin take a massive leg to the downside. What do we see happening with the altcoins? If we look at ETH BTC, Bitcoin starts to move down, which it's been doing for the past period in time, for the past prolonged period in time. And Ethereum has been dropping against Bitcoin. So with that being said, ETH USD, I would not be surprised to see this drop another 54%. $500 is where I plan on starting to pick up ETH. That is all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's content, and I hope you found some value in today's charts. As always, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.